Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Hope you all had an enjoyable Labor Day weekend. I call to order this public hearing and regular meeting of the Scottsdale Unified School District Governing Board. The date is September 4th, 2018, and the time is 5:02. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Board Member Hartman, will you please lead us? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll start with a roll call from my far right.
Sandy Kravitz.
Allison Beckham.
Pam Kirby.
Kim Hartman.
Barbara Perleberg. All board members are present, and we do have a quorum. We start first with agenda item 3, approval of agenda. Are there any requests to amend the agenda? I know that there are. Board member Beckham.
Yes, could we please pull agenda item R and S?
This is from consent agenda.
Consent
so
agenda.
8R
and S.
and S. All right. Board member, is that all you have? Board member Kravitz.
Could we also pull agenda item O?
O, also on consent. Approve the purchase of multifunction copy machines, correct? O?
Yes.
Okay. And board member Kirby.
Item L on consent, please.
L as in Larry. Okay. All right. So we have pulled consent agenda items 8L, O, R, and S. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you, board member Hartman. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, board member Kravitz. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. We next move on to item 4 and call upon Dr. Creekard to present student and staff recognitions and celebrations.
Thank you, President Perleberg, members of the board. We have some celebrations from our high schools to share today, and I'd like to introduce Dr. Sakos to make those presentations.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Creekard, and Ms. Olivas. It is my pleasure to call up a Arcadia senior. I'll make sure I get this correct. Keegan Tyrold. Come on up, Keegan. Keegan Tyrold. Tongue twister there. I practiced his name all night. Our graphic design teacher from Arcadia High School, Miss Diana Cure.
Come on down.
Yes.
Come on down.
Principal Todd Stevens was unable to be here this evening, but he certainly wanted me to pass along his congratulations to you. Skills USA is a national membership association serving high school, college, and middle school students who are preparing for careers in trade, technical, and skilled service occupations and for further education. It is a partnership of students, teachers, and industry working together to ensure America has a skilled workforce. Skills USA helps each student excel. In coordination with the Arizona Department of Education, Skills USA conducts a statewide competition every April at the Phoenix Convention Center, affording students an opportunity to compete in 100 occupational and leadership skills area. State winners go on to compete at the National Skills USA competition, which this year took place in Louisville, Kentucky, in late June. It is with great pride that I present Arcadia High School senior Keegan Tyrold, Arizona, and the nation's 2018 gold medal winner in the state pen competition. Keegan is holding up his winning design in the shape of the infamous Route 66 sign and features cacti, rays of sun, and the earth tones for which our state is known. Keegan's design was among 5 Arcadia submitted to the state competition. After winning there, it competed in Louisville against the top designs from 29 other states. In case you think this is merely a art contest, which in itself is no easy task, contestants must also give a 5 to 7 minute speech in front of all the judges, then answers a series of questions from the judges and defend their design choices and its marketability. Needless to say, Keegan excelled in all of these areas. Keegan, would you like to share to the governing board, Dr. Creekard, and our audience a little bit about the competition and your fabulous design?
Certainly. I'd just like to say what an incredible opportunity it was for me, for the school, for the other students that competed. And I'd just like to thank Ms. Cure and everybody else that helped us have this incredible opportunity.
Great, thank you. This is not the first time I've stood up here and acknowledged winners from the Arcadia High School graphic design, and different students every single year, but I've done it multiple times for Miss Diana Cure. She is a remarkable teacher that has been at Arcadia for many years. I won't say how many years, but for many years. And I truly appreciate all of her hard work and the support that she gives her students. We've seen things from Valley Metro bus wraps to these types of competitions, and it's remarkable what she's able to do with her students each and every year. So, Ms. Cure, congratulations. And there will be a photo opportunity right outside. There. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Right. Now I'd like to call up Gary Griggs. Gary Griggs is a former Desert Mountain High School counselor. He is now Scottsdale Online guidance counselor, and he's also an integral part in Unitown, a diversity camp that takes place in Prescott each and every year. And each and every year he does outstanding. Ooh. And he looks like he has some students with him. All right, I'll have to get their names. And every year, Gary goes above and beyond to ensure that students from all 5 high schools have that opportunity to go up to Unitown and participate in a 5-day retreat, if you will, working on diversity, and students come back and then, of course, talk to their student body as well. So Gary, I'll let you do the introductions of the students you have with you and tell us about Unitown.
So I'm Gary. I've worked in Scottsdale for about 17 years. I was a Scottsdale grad. I graduated from this campus right here, went to Holcomb, went to Supai, and this is my life. I love these students. I love working with them, and this is the one thing that they know, and I might get emotional, that they're really, really special to me, and they might get emotional with me too, but that's not the point. The biggest thing that we want to know, or we want everybody to know, is what Unitown is, because there's a lot of people that kind of hear it, but they never know exactly what we do. Every year we take about 100 students from Scottsdale, from all 5 high schools. We bring them together for like a leadership and diversity camp, and we have them have conversations. We take away their cell phones. They sit down. We take away their cell phones. We have these conversations about real life things. And this is the first time in my career where I get to see students actually have those adult conversations, and they leave there feeling better, and they leave there and they go back to their campuses and they kind of support their campuses through different means. And that's what their students are going to talk about, is what Unitown means to them and what they're doing at their campuses. The biggest thing I want everybody to know is that we're not a secret. If anybody asks me what we do, I'm 100% honest. The reason that we try to keep things our secret is because we have students that go every year, so we don't want to tell everybody what our programs are, because those students don't get it as a new experience because they've heard exactly what it is. So when we leave, we're like, please tell your parents exactly what we did. You can talk about all of it, but don't tell any other students, because that's the way we keep it a secret. Some things that have happened over the years that people don't realize is that we're kind of secret in other parts. Charles, last year, 3 of the students were actually Unitown students. 3 of the teachers were Unitown students. Part of the Rotary competition, there was many of those students that were Unitown students. We are in the community doing things on each of the campuses and helping out our campuses the best we can. So each of them are going to talk about a little bit about their campus and what they're doing and introduce themselves. You want to go for it,
Hi, my name's Ryan Bear. I'm currently a senior at Desert Mountain, and I've been part of Unitown since my freshman year. and I've actually gone all 3 years, and I'm hoping to go once more for a fourth time. For me, Uniontown has filled a gap that just the traditional classroom hasn't always fulfilled. If you read any sort of research on work success, one of the main things that's always brought up is the emotional intelligence. Studies dating back to the 90s have shown that those that have a greater amount of emotional intelligence tend to do better in the workforce. Unitown helps you learn how to not only respect others, but also how to work with yourself and how to manage yourself. Because of Unitown, I felt a lot more prepared going into the workforce as a leader, knowing how to work with others, how to respect others, and mostly how to just be kind to others. As for what I've actually been doing at my campus, I'm currently the president of our Unitown club. And one of the big things that we've actually been working on this year is to begin implementing what we want to call unity programs into some of our freshman and sophomore classes, as we've noticed some rising issues of some of the words that are being used in the hallways. And these programs were actually supposed to begin last year, but they got delayed. So we've been hoping that they will start up now. In addition to that, we've also been working on getting a pride flag up, just to kind of create a more inclusive environment for all of these students. And lastly, we're working on creating more awareness events throughout the school year by creating sort of task forces of students that we each kind of take on a different sort of awareness topic, and then create a event to kind of help educate others as well as teach others about what's actually happening in the world. So thank you very, very much.
Hi everyone, I'm Michaela Taylor. I go to Coronado. Me and Gary Griggs are kind of twins. I went through Hohokam, Supai, and Coronado too. This is my senior year here. It's home for me, Coronado, to me and through the school, especially I feel, representing as a co-president, I can justly say that throughout the Coronado Success Initiative, it's been kind of crazy here a little bit. I think some people that go here could kind of agree. It's been a rough adjustment. But I'd say through Unitown, Coronado kids have kind of found a connection through the community that they didn't have before. And I feel like a lot of our younger kids, sophomores and juniors that go, would say that too. I know that as a sophomore and junior, going into Unitown brought me a little bit closer to the other schools. As Coronado, you're kind of off to the side and you kind of feel a little bit forgotten about, I would say, a little bit. But going to this program showed that the other kids can't be scary, Coronado kids are really scared of the higher north you go, scarier the kids get. And I'd say that Coronado kids have really learned to branch out of their shells and to talk to these kids and create conversations between income and color and everything between. And that's something that Unitown brought to those kids and gave them the voice to say and the power to go up there and say. I think that Coronado had a lot of learning, and those kids will definitely be your star students in these coming up years, and I'm super proud of the kids that I've helped to pick to go to this program, and I know that they'll use their voice to come here and help make the Scottsdale Unified School District more unified than it was before. So that's all.
Hi, my name is Brianna Walker. I am the president of Unitown Club at Arcadia High School. I made a list because I know there's a lot of stuff that we do on my campus, so it's kind of hard to remember. But in general, Unitown to me, first I was told about Unitown before I even got to high school by an advisor that went there, and so I had opportunities before high school even hit for me to meet Unitown leaders, delegates, advisors, counselors, anybody. And so kind of, my friends are so smart, but kind of like they were saying, it fills a void, and it really, it connects you to other people in the district that, I have connections now in Scottsdale that I didn't even know. Like, I always forget which schools friends go to because, I mean, seriously, in every single school in this district, I can, if there's a problem, if there's a question, I can call and I know that they're going to be there to answer it for me. So on my campus, well, first for Unitown, there are 4 major clubs that we have presidents of, which are ASAB, which is the Arcadia Student Advisory Board, which came out of Unitown, Pride Coalition, NHS, and then the African American Student Union, which is my club. So stuff that I've done specifically, when I came back my sophomore year, as soon as we got back, the delegate group that I went with, we did a mental health awareness day. So we went on our announcements, we put up posters, we offered to answer questions to any students that had them, and the campus was pretty responsive. And then another thing we did last year, I did a culture and diversity panel. And basically we had different students from all walks of life on my campus come and sit in a panel in a huge room and just have students come of their own will. Like, we didn't force anybody to come, but we had a pretty good number. And they actually asked questions and they learned, and I'm planning on doing that a couple more times this year, because something that Unitown has taught me is, like, you're not gonna know what somebody's going through or what they have to deal with or who they are in general if you don't ask. And so giving students on my campus the opportunity to ask those questions, I think is gonna help a lot. Another thing that I did sort of last year, there was a walkout against gun violence on my campus. I know we had a lot of issues with that. And so the students were kind of jumbled. Not everyone really knew what to do. And so you had this huge group of students standing on my campus. Some wanted to walk out, some wanted to stay. I decided to take initiative, something that Unitown taught me. I think it's given me such a voice that sometimes it's hard to reel it in a little bit, but it really helped me. So I got up and stood in front of the students and I had a conversation with them about gun violence. I had gone to countless rallies for gun violence before that, and so I knew a lot about the topic, but I talked to them and figured out a way to please both administrators and students on my campus by giving everybody a moment of silence and then later having everyone go back to class. But I think in general it helped a lot. And so the other main thing I guess that I do on my campus is talking with administrators, always having an open line of communication. If Mr. Stevens was here, he'd tell you if there's any problem that happens on my campus, I'm usually the first one that is going to come to him and tell him about it. But all in all, I think Unitown has given me such a voice and such a purpose, not only in this district, but in my home, anywhere that I go. I know that that's something that's going to stick with me. And so, like Gary said, I'm going to try my best not to cry or say anything too emotional. But really, this is, you probably think people are crazy when they say, wow, if you go to Unitown, it's really going to change your life. They're not crazy at all. That probably doesn't even do it justice. In this district, we have, kind of like Mac was saying, there's so many students from different walks of life, different backgrounds, ethnicities, different religions. When you really put a group of students together from all different backgrounds and you give them a chance to talk and really understand one another, and then they in turn go back to their campuses and spread that in their homes and their schools and their churches and their communities, it's almost like a dream. Like, it's not ideal, but once it gets done and once we do it, you're going to have a lot of changes. And so I think parents see that, teachers see that, students see that, communities see that. So yeah, go Unitown.
A special thank you to our young leaders for coming up and sharing your experiences with Unitown, and our fearless Mr. Griggs, who's continued to lead Unitown over the years. Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Sakos. Thank you to these outstanding high school students who are already in many ways making their way in the world with the skills they are learning in our classrooms and through extracurricular activities such as Unitown. We will continue to follow their progress. I expect that members of the Navajo Elementary School community have joined us this evening. Thank you. I want to take this opportunity in this setting to acknowledge the completely unexpected and wonderful support Navajo and its teachers and students have received from the community at large since the August 22nd fire at the school. To see parents, grandparents, former students, SUSD principals, teachers from other district schools, parent-teacher organizations, district-wide, and people with absolutely no connection to the school come to Navajo's rescue with pencils and markers, papers and folders, books and tape, food, water, and more has been absolutely amazing and so generous. I think this overwhelming and thoughtful reaction speaks volumes for the type of parents, staff, and community in which we live. And I could not be more grateful or proud. Thank you. I would also be remiss if I did not also mention the outstanding teamwork that occurred to move Navajo, its 400 students and support staff, to the Oak Learning Academy in just one day. Building services, facilities, transportation, IT, teaching and learning, special education, nutrition, the warehouse, security, translation, communications, and my cabinet all came together and pitched in to provide the great unified response that enabled students to be reunited with their teachers after only one day on a different campus not too far away. But recognition also needs to be given to Principal Matt Patzloff, Assistant Principal Angie Keamy, and Navajo staff for pulling together to make the transition nearly seamless. I'm happy to report that all is well at the new Navajo. Thank you for everything all of you do every day for the students of SUSD, and particularly in this situation. Thank you. This time of the year, most of the athletics you hear about that surrounding high school is about football. But a week ago, Saturday, more than 750 of our middle school athletes on 45 teams from our 9 middle grade schools descended on 5 different venues around town to take part in the annual Middle Schools Fall Sports Festival. Girls competed in volleyball and boys competed in baseball. School teams have been formed based on the festival's results and have begun their interscholastic seasons. Finally, I want to tell you something that happened at a recent football game between 2 of our schools that needs to be acknowledged. On August 23rd, the Chaparral freshman football team hosted Desert Mountain. A Desert Mountain player became violently ill near the locker rooms and was in need of assistance. Jalen Martin, a Chaparral junior varsity football player, came to the aid of this Desert Mountain player in need. He not only offered the Desert Mountain player his own water, but he ran to find a maintenance employee to find some paper towels. He then returned to check on the Desert Mountain player. Jalen's actions were exceptional and deserve recognition. We would like to thank Jalen for the compassion and humanity he showed for a student athlete from a rival school. He exemplifies what we are working daily on in SUSD athletics, fostering a culture of sportsmanship, respect, and character. Jalen is not here tonight because he's at practice. Well done, Jalen, and thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to take that as your superintendent's comments, correct?
Yes.
Okay, you're so eager tonight to jump the gun there, but that's okay. So we'll move on to our next information discussion item. That will be 6A, first read of revisions to policy BCB, board member conflict of interest, DJ, purchasing ethics, and EEA, bus driver requirements. Ms. Marshall.
Forgive me, it was emailed here, but I didn't have it up. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Creekard and Sandra, I'm sorry, not Sandra, Jill. Hi, Jill. Apologize. I've brought to you for a first read a few policies, the first of which is policy BCB, board member conflict of interest. You'll recall that we recently redid our staff member conflict of interest policy and form, and this policy also needed to be updated both for the changes that came with HB 2663 and then a previous revision that didn't make it in to our policy, which I'll explain here. I have the red line up here. So the first change, which is straight from HB 2663, is explaining what it means to refrain from when the statute says that if you have a substantial interest in a matter that you'll refrain from participating in. The new legislation expanded that a little bit to explain that it's not just refraining from a decision, but refraining in any manner, including all of the steps that might lead up to making a decision, you know, making recommendations, emailing back and forth about whether one should or shouldn't make a certain decision. So we added that definition. What we also didn't have from pre-HB 2663 is the next section here regarding, we had the purchases from governing board members with districts of 3,000 or more because it applies to us. The countervailing part of that is for smaller districts. We felt we'd just include it for completeness sake. The language from these two sections is directly from ARS 15323, and that talks about when we can purchase from a board member. 323 at this time would not apply to our district because 15323 specifically says that the governing board may make purchases from a board member, in our case, a larger district, if that transaction does not exceed $300, the total purchases from any board member within a 12-month period wouldn't exceed $1,000, and that the board has within the last 12 months adopted a policy allowing you to do so. We don't have that policy. I've never heard anybody ask me to bring that policy, so it doesn't really apply. But again, just to bring us in compliance with the ASBA form model. I will take any questions on that or move on.
Board Member Kirby.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. Back to the definition of refrain from participating in any
Yes.
manner. And I ask this not because it's been a question here in the Scottsdale School District, but it has been a question in a municipality that sits within our district. Does that also include deliberations?
Yes, absolutely.
Can we add that word to this red line, just with the conflict of interest, must not make recommendations, give advice, deliberate, or otherwise communicate in any manner?
We can certainly add that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. No other comments?
Okay. The corresponding form I wanted to show you and our public what we're recommending for your form. We now have a similar form for our staff that was recently updated, and this form for board members tracks what we did with that form. Sorry. Trying to make it show the. There it is. Okay. It's a little messy, but what we had for a form for board member conflict of interest before is what you see here in black. It was very brief, not a lot of detail, and similar to the staff conflict of interest, we added a lot more, both to explain to the people filling it out what's expected and to comply with what will now be expected by the Attorney General's office. This includes stating whether you have a conflict. So before, it could be confused that you didn't have to say anything if you didn't have a conflict. Now, this form specifies I have no conflict, and you're supposed to initial and sign that. It also acknowledges that you've had a chance to review the actual policy before signing, and that you'll abide by the policy, and otherwise tracks the staff conflict of interest, including describing what the interest is, and if you have one, declaring that you will refrain from participating in any manner in a decision that touches on that relationship. Any questions about that form?
Board Member Beckham.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Marshall. If I'm remembering correctly, in the staff conflict of interest, it mentions a time period that I think you
Yes.
have to do it annually. Does this one also, is this something that has to be done annually, and then it will be up to the individual board member to do within 15 days of the first of the year, or what is the
Yes,
language?
this, under the instructions, just like with the staff one, it's kind of hard to see with that, in that color, probably better if I don't highlight it. Annually, and then if a conflict arises within that year, 15 days within the conflict arising, just like with staff. Thank you for that question.
And Board Member Kirby.
Thank you. So along those same lines, annually, who's responsible from the staff side to bring this document to each board member to have signed?
That's a great question. The legal department is responsible for maintaining all of these conflict forms, so it would make sense for the person in my position, me, to bring it to new board members each time we have a new board member, or help a board member navigate through it if they have any questions once a conflict arises.
But it's also annually, so it's also, even if you have a sitting board,
Yes.
it's the second year. So what I'm hearing is the legal department will
Yes.
will be accountable to bringing this document to the board every year,
That's-
or when a new board member is seated.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
And it would make sense for that to happen in January. Any other questions on that?
I see now.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Board Member Beckham.
Okay, that kind of goes along the same
Sorry.
lines I was talking about, but so the only responsibility for the board member is if a new conflict arises. Otherwise, it sounds like the responsibility is not up to the board member to annually sign this form. You have just stated that the legal department will be bringing it to us. So
Right.
you might want to state that if that's the case. So there's no confusion of who is
Right.
responsible.
The legal department will be responsible for gathering the forms from board members annually. I obviously can't know if a conflict arises in the midst of an annual, but yes, I will bring it annually to board members.
Do you understand the difference
I'm not sure I understand the
So the
distinction you're
difference
making.
is that I'm a board member, you forget, your legal department forgets to do it. And, hey, I had a conflict, or.
They won't know.
They won't know, but if I had, but I'm just thinking, it's taking the you're taking the
I see what you're
responsibility
saying,
away
yeah,
from us. Should
right.
it be our responsibility even at the beginning of the year to fill that form out ourselves?
Well, much like many other things that we do every year in certain months, different departments bring things. I think it makes sense. It's not saying that the board member's not responsible for declaring the conflict, but ministerially, I appreciate that.
Board Member Kirby.
Thank you. I appreciate you as a legal department wanting to take this on, but this seems to be a very administrative sort of task. And, I'm somewhat ambivalent, but might I recommend that the board secretary take the responsibility to bring it to the board on the annual basis, first meeting in January? Just because as a highly paid
Right.
legal executive in a department of 2, there are many more important things that I
Right.
think you should be focused on versus the administrative
Okay.
tasks.
That I appreciate that, and that does make sense, Board Member Kirby. I was extrapolating from the fact that I'm responsible for, if anybody comes looking for the documents, I need to keep them and have them up to date, but you're right, in terms of a ministerial task, I can talk with Sandra about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the discussion. Okay, the next one that I have for you is policy DJ, which is called purchasing or purchasing ethics policy. And again, the changes in here are straight from House Bill 2663. Quite a few here. Talking about employees who participate in contracts or purchases, not accepting gifts from vendors, explaining what a gift or benefit is, meaning a payment, distribution, expenditure, etc. That it does not specifically include food or beverages. That next line, I've done one training for our admin and we'll do more this year. That next line, I've never heard anybody explain it about being allowed to sponsorships related to a special event or function related to individuals identified in this policy. My best interpretation of that is that that was to allow for things like the foundation golf tournament fundraiser. It's okay for employees to participate in that. I would say that this language does not allow for a vendor to pay for an employee's participation in a specific event, but if a vendor is sponsoring an event, an employee can participate in that event. The definition also specifies what is not a gift or benefit, including a t-shirt, mug, or pen. And then finally, this policy talks about retaliation. They use the word reprisal. HB 2663 states that anybody who has control over personnel actions, and I take that to mean anybody who's a supervisor, may not take reprisal or retaliate against an employee for that employee disclosing a matter that's of public concern. This language is similar to the existing statutory language regarding whistleblowers, except in one respect. For whistleblowers, under that statute, it states that the employee must have a good faith belief that there's a violation or that something is a matter of public concern. As it stands now, this statute does not include that good faith requirement. I know that there are discussions with the legislature about including that protection, if you will, for employers to mirror the whistleblower statute, but this is what the statute says right now, so that's what we're recommending. Any questions on this one?
Don't see any. Oh, sorry, Board Member Hartman.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. On your last point on the verbiage that supports the whistleblower policy, it is of a higher standard. And so I'm wondering if we think that that's the appropriate language, why we would just not go ahead and include it. We don't always have to, we often choose not to be exactly consistent with ASBA.
Thank you for that question, which is a good one. In this case, if we were to add the requirement that an employee be making that comment in good faith, we would be putting a greater restriction on the employee than what the statute allows. We can be more restrictive, but we can't be more punitive towards an employee, if that makes sense. So as it stands, I would not recommend that we add a good faith requirement until they settle the law. And finally, my outlier. EA, bus driver requirements, training, and responsibilities. This was another policy that just needed updating to match both what we do and statute. You see in blue there the language. I did ask our Director of Purchasing, Brendan Wagner, if he had any. Sorry? What did I say? Purchasing. I'm sorry, Eva and Brendan. Director.
You need a program to keep up with all the changes. Yeah.
Director of Transportation, if he had any changes or issues with the language as it is, and he said this is the way we do it and it's fine. Just stating that bus drivers shall submit a verified fingerprint clearance card per statute, and that they will maintain that. And then the other cleanup here is the district will assume the cost of required physical examinations, and drivers will assume the cost of obtaining a valid CDL, commercial driver's license. I asked Brendan because I know that we We do offer training for CDLs to bus drivers who want to take advantage of that, but he said that they do pay for their own actual license. Excuse me. Are there any questions on this one?
Board Member Beckham.
I had asked this earlier, and I don't know. The answer is that I believe, I just want to confirm, it's not appropriate to be in here, but we don't talk about how often we get physical examinations or if it's actually a requirement. It just talks about the cost. So is it a requirement that is done annually, or what is the physical examination requirement?
Let me ask, is Brendan here? Yes.
Can we add that it's an annual requirement?
We can certainly do
The
that.
title of this area is requirements, training, and I forgot what the third one was. Also, we don't discuss really, do we discuss training at all in any of these paragraphs? Does something need to be added regarding training, or do we need to take off the word training?
I can follow up with Brendan and see if there's anything about training that he would add to this policy. As I explained earlier, the ASBA policies, this title here, they won't let us change. But as you'll note, we did line out physical examinations and licensing. We can add a parenthetical to be more clear about what it is. However, before the second read, I will talk to Brendan and see if there's anything he would like to add in terms of training to this before I bring it back.
All right. Any other questions? I don't see any others.
All right. I usually ask whether you think I should bring this back on consent. I'm looking through my notes. To me, it looks like the changes you're suggesting for the most part seem like they could come back on consent. Is that?
Board Member Kirby.
Thank you. I would agree with that if we could just have, as part of our board packet, what it looks like now.
Right.
And then the red line to this.
Right.
Of what the
Okay.
final would be. And then it could be on consent.
Okay, I will do
Thanks.
that.
I'd agree with that. Everyone good?
Thank you.
All right. See it again. Thank you. Okay. If Ms. Marshall is all done,
I am all done.
we'll move on. Our next agenda item, 7, public comments. Jill, you have all the cards. Thank you. In conformance with open meeting laws, the governing board may not discuss or take action tonight on any matters raised during public comments that are not on the agenda. However, the governing board may respond to direct criticism, ask staff to review the matter, or ask that it be placed on a future agenda. As a reminder, each speaker will have 3 minutes. Vice President Hartman will indicate the time along with our timer on the screen. And a 30-second warning. Please be prepared to close your comments and relinquish the floor at the conclusion of your time. We do ask that each speaker introduce themselves for clarity in the records. We thank you for your time and attendance here tonight and your cooperation in following the meeting protocols. Our first comment is from Megan Goodman.
Hello, my name is Megan Goodman, and I have 2 daughters that attend Navajo School. One in 2nd grade, one in kindergarten. I do understand no decisions regarding the future of our school are being made tonight. However, I think it is important for you to know how important this school is to our community. When it became time to enroll in school, my husband and I researched and toured area schools. As a former public school teacher in Phoenix, I am a huge supporter of public education. After touring Navajo, we knew it was the perfect fit for our family. Navajo is not only conveniently our neighborhood school, but it is also our school of choice. We chose Navajo for the STEAM focus, and we are grateful that we did. We immediately fell in love with the staff, teachers, and administration. They have always made us feel welcome and have always had an open door policy, encouraging us and providing us with numerous opportunities to be a partner in the education of our children. We realized very early that Navajo was a special place. Our daughter's problem solving and critical thinking skills began to change. She looked at the world through a different lens. Every day, my girls are engaged in finding solutions to real-life problems, working together in groups, learning and discovering using different technologies. Also, they are exposed to science every single day of the school year. STEAM is just one of the reasons why Navajo is so special. We also have a school garden and a habitat for our own desert tortoise tortilla, a watchdog program that encourages dads, grandfathers, uncles, and volunteers to volunteer in the school and be positive male role models for our students. I could go on, but I realize I only have 3 minutes. To say our world came crashing down on the 12th day of school is an understatement. Our children have been displaced, our teachers have lost everything, and our community has been devastated. However, it has been amazing watching the community rally around Navajo to support us and help us pick up the pieces and begin moving forward. Just hours after the fire, people from near and far stepped up to help. The PTO raised more than $12,000 in less than a week through a crowdsourcing campaign. Local and national businesses and organizations have stepped up. Surrounding Scottsdale schools and their PTOs have stepped up. Concerned citizens with no children enrolled in school have stepped up. Money, books, supplies, volunteer time, etc. has poured in. Why? Because Navajo matters. Our students matter, our teachers matter, our community matters. The evidence is overwhelming. Now it is time for you, the SUSD Governing Board, to step up and focus your efforts on the restoration of our beloved school. Thank you.
Greg Thorne.
Hello, my name is Greg Thorne. I am a parent, a member of the Navajo PTO, and I run the Dad's Club Watchdogs at Navajo. I would like to take this time to advise the board why they should not close Navajo and should restore it, not rebuild it. Restoring Navajo should be priority one. We do not need a $12 million, $18 million school. We want our Navajo. Navajo is the center of our community. Navajo is like a family to my family. If you decide to close Navajo, you'll be breaking up a community that is family. Being part of PTO and running the Dad's Clubs has opened my eyes to how important the families are to this community and school. My daughter is in 4th grade. She has made so many friends over the 4+ years she has been there. I have made many friends due to Navajo that are sitting in this audience now. The fire has brought our community even closer together. As the top dog coordinator of our Dad's Club Watchdogs, this is our 4th year. I have seen more dads, father figures get involved with this school over the last 3 years. We average 35 to 45 volunteer days per year just from dads coming to be a watchdog at Navajo. This does not include the volunteering dads do for other events such as our fall festival, our fun run, Valentine's social, field day, and our biggest project for watchdogs is the 5th grade cigar boxcar project. 2 years ago, we helped the 5th graders build 50 guitars. Last year, we helped them build over 80 guitars. Being a watchdog in Navajo makes dads feel like superheroes. The kids remember your name, they have someone to look up to and talk to if needed. Some of these kids don't even have dads or father figures. And for them to be able to talk or see a watchdog is priceless. This is just one of the many programs that Navajo have today and make it what it is today. As a parent, I do not see any benefit of closing this school down. There is one other STEAM school, Laguna, but it ain't the same as Navajo. The admin and the staff at Navajo have been so strong and courageous through this whole ordeal. I plead that you vote to restore Navajo so we are back on campus for the 2019-2020 school year. I appreciate taking my time to listen.
Scott Stevenson. And after Mr. Stevenson will be Nancy Cantor.
Hi there. Well, thank you all for hearing all of us out tonight. My name is Scott Stevenson, and I'm coming to you with really three perspectives that I have the privilege to hold when it comes to Navajo Elementary School. First of all, I'm a dad. My daughter Tenley is in second grade, and I have a daughter Lila, who is almost 4, who is adamant that she is in preschool at Navajo Elementary School. Finally, I have a younger daughter. Her name is Brielle. She's a year and a half old, and if you took them that young, she'd be there in a heartbeat. But all of that to say, I know that over the next season, you guys are going to be overloaded with a lot of numbers, a lot of statistics, a lot of demographics, a lot of things are going to be coming your way. And I shared those details with you just simply to remind you that there is a name, an individual, and a family behind every single one of those numbers that you guys are about to be inundated with. Finally, the second perspective that I have is a neighbor. Much like Megan, Navajo is in my neighborhood. I own a home just about 1 residential street north of Navajo Elementary School. And we have been in the area for about 2.5 years, moving from Sacramento, California, and I can tell you right now that we moved specifically for this community. And what we love is that, yes, much like Megan said, that Navajo, like a lot of the people here, is not only our neighborhood school, but it is absolutely our school of choice. Finally, my third perspective is probably going to be the most different than most folks here, is that I kind of consider myself to be a community stakeholder. I have the opportunity to lead a church in the area called Open Arms Church, which is about a 1/4 mile north of Navajo Elementary School. And we invest heavily. Our people are committed to this school because we know that elementary schools especially, but schools all across the board are pillars in the community. And Navajo has boggled my mind in every way, shape, and form of the community that exists. And of course, you have seen the resilience, you have seen the togetherness of people being able to shove aside their differences, their beliefs, and whatever that might be to come together for a cause. And I say all of that once again just to encourage you to, again, I was one of the people that when I researched the schools, I looked at the numbers. Very quickly, Navajo was a little bit below the other schools that we looked at. We toured, we met the faculty, we met the principals, we met the teachers of everybody involved, and Navajo, the moment we walked on campus, very quickly became home for us. And so I encourage all of you guys, as you guys are going to be slammed with numbers once again, to remember that families and people are at stake here. In Navajo, there is nothing like this little community. Thank you for your time.
Nancy Cantor will be followed by Edmund Richard.
I'm Nancy Cantor, and my contact information is on record everywhere, I think, even with the PD, but that's another story. I've lived in this community for 54 years. I raised my kids in a neighborhood school. I've served the district. I've also served the city on 4 boards and commissions: the General Plan Update, Human Services, Public Safety, and Neighborhood Revitalization. In every one of those documents on policy and procedures, neighborhood schools are supported verbally in words. Tap it on your head for it. It's of the utmost importance to the quality of life to a lot of people, but it's mostly our kids. And that neighborhood school sometimes offers the golden hand. Now, you heard the kids up here say it's about the school. It is about the kids. Those numbers are a kid. We need to remember that. We need to represent them and advocate for them. I've provided you with some of the things that we on the Bond Oversight Committee have been looking at. Navajo needs to be either refurbished or rebuilt. It does not need to go away. I'm not saying that representing the BOC. I'm saying that as someone who has a great-granddaughter who's going to be in school next year. She needs to be able to go to school in her neighborhood. Keep Navajo, keep the community, and keep the kids involved.
Edmund Richard will be followed by Sonny Kirtley, I believe.
Good day, board members. My name is Edmund Richard. As I see my fellow community members here from Navajo, I have some really awful flashbacks. It's actually quite ironic that you had a little thing about there about conflict of interest. Because a while ago, my neighborhood school, the school around the corner from my house, was the rather painful subject of a closure. Now, the board at that time was, well, let's say creative. This is what the problem is. As board members, you guys are silent. So you know what happens? Think of a zoo. Think of the circus. What attracts everyone's attention? The clown. In a zoo, it's the monkey throwing poo. It's the monkey doing something irresponsible. So you know what happened in today's world? Social media has crushed your voice. And I could bet you we have parents and community members here, but you're saying we don't want our school closed because one of those rather loudmouth monkeys has twisted words and all of a sudden said any school under 500 kids needs to be closed. But you know what? None of you have said that. I don't think Dr. Creekard said that. I don't think one of the BOC has said that. But you know what? It's time for you guys to step up. You guys need to say, we're committed to public education. What happened in Navajo is a travesty. So you know what? We're not going to take 15 months or a year to discuss numbers, because we're going to be talking about community for once, and we're going to stand up for public education. So we're going to set some clear guidelines, and we're going to work with the community and work this out. You either rebuild Navajo or you don't, but don't leave it a mystery. Don't drag it out. As one of the parents whose kids go by a fenced-in, weed-filled field, which used to be their elementary school, don't make that for Navajo. Stand up. Make it clear what you're going to do. Do not do any more damn studies. Dear Lord, if I printed out every study you've done, we could have built 3 schools with it. Stand up, be clear, communicate, and dear Lord, communicate. You know what? Use your cell phone when you have to. Tell these parents and community members you're there for them. Do not bury yourself in process. Thank you.
Good afternoon, President Perlberg, school board members, general counsel, and Dr. John Creekart. We're longtime people in the district. My name is Dr. Sonny Kirtley. I've lived 50 years in Scottsdale, just a tweak less than Nancy. We've been on lots of task force together. Our city council tends to pick on us all the time, no matter what the topic and the title. We most recently served a year and a half on the general plan update, and let me tell you, we heard citywide from residents and renters that neighborhood is the most important value that we have in this city. We must nurture them, we must protect them. And as a Navajo parent with 3 very successful adults, because they went to Navajo and they had Mrs. Tank in kindergarten, if you recall her, the whip. Our policies and guidelines in the general plan were very broad, but what you are tasked with is going to attack personally. It's going to impact personally the Navajo parents and teachers sitting here, the uniqueness of and the character of that Navajo neighborhood. It's a tough decision. Tough decisions just like city council has to do. And when you make that kind of decision, remember that through restoration, there's a win-win. No expense to the district. The insurance trust is going to pay 100%. They're going to update your building code to 2018 or 2019 when you get it in the saddle. The impact on the budget for the district is 0. I wish we could say that for city council, who is $800 million behind. What a wonderful win-win for you. and it would be a win for the neighborhood. It's unique, it's special. My 50 years, I don't have another 50, but I will spread my ashes right here if you don't do the restoration.
Megan Prince, followed by Katarina Pavesi. Probably murdered that.
Hello, I'm Megan Prince, parent at Navajo Elementary and the PTO treasurer. So a lot of my friends have already talked about the community, so I thought I'd bring up some enrollment for you guys. When focusing on enrollment, my question is, are we sure we want our schools across the district over 600 students? Growing up in a small town and a small school, I can speak to my own experience to the benefits of that type of environment, but looking at the research that confirms that small class sizes benefit younger grades and more diverse, low-income students like those in Navajo raises my concern. I believe our smaller schools have been one of the causes of the increases in test scores we've seen over the last 3 years. However, if larger enrollment is the goal, I feel we need to face what has not been done. Enrollment at SUSD has been declining for years. It's a topic that's been addressed by closing schools or buildings and spending less. Where I feel we have failed is in challenging our competition for these students. Our biggest declines correlate with the opening of charter schools right in our neighborhood. So why are people leaving SUSD? Are we marketing our schools to show off the great things that we are teaching our children? No, I don't believe we are. I searched STEM schools in Scottsdale, and not one SUSD school, including Navajo, came up. The SUSD site has an article about Saguaro that appears about 10 links down the page, and the only 2 schools who show up anywhere near Scottsdale are Basis and Sonoran Science Academy, and Basis doesn't actually have a STEM program, they just test highly in those areas. When posed with a choice as doing surface level research between a 50-year-old building with low technology and average test scores and a brand new building with above average test scores, people choose charter. But when you do what we did and dig deeper, you visit the schools, you talk to the teachers, you learn about the curriculum offered, you find out how special Navajo is. If we really want to compete with other schools, we need to showcase what we have to offer, not pull back and simply cut costs. The first way to do this is restore Navajo with the money already allocated for that purpose. Thank you.
Katarina will be followed by Jeff D. Domenico.
Members of the board, thank you. Dr. Creekard. It takes a lot of courage to stand up here, and I'm not a public speaker. Many Navajo community members are here to support Navajo remaining open. 2 years ago was my first time attending Scottsdale Parent Council meeting, and where we were passed out the magnets for the bond and override. I took home yard placards to market getting that bond passed. I feel that you should restore Navajo because we were going to do it anyways with the bond and override. So the voters passed it, and it needs to be upheld. I volunteer my time many hours before and after the fire, and I was witness to the amazing efforts everyone did. It was literally amazing seeing facilities move everything out of those rooms to make room for the kids and their resilience, and to be okay and be safe in this school is it's a beautiful thing. All the support, it's beautiful. And I have a family at Navajo, and many of my family is here. It's my heart. After suffering such a devastating fire, if you close Navajo, it would give the community such a sad ending. It's a great STEAM-focused school, and it's the main reason why my children go there. Thank you.
My name is Jeff DiDomenico, and as a lot of the community members have said already, they brought up some very valid points, much of which will get me too emotional if I speak about it, so I'm going to keep it real simple, because it really is simple. There isn't even a decision here. I know you guys have labeled 1, 2, 3, but the truth of the matter is, for the public who doesn't understand, Sony touched on it, but the AZ Risk Retention Trust is the insurance policy that covers this fire. They will and are committed to paying 100% of restoration. They're not committed to rebuilding the school. They're not committed to knocking it down for consolidation. They're committed to 100% of the restoration of this school, including the upgrades to bring the school up to code. Okay, that's what the community wants. To get the language straight, we're not talking about a rebuild. We're not talking about a consolidation to close. Now, you hired Brown Consulting. It was nice enough to see Skip Brown at the last business meeting, where he talked about 3 things: efficiency, effectiveness, equity. Efficiency, the least cost. Insurance is going to cover it. It's the least cost. Restore. Effectiveness, the best result for the stakeholders and the entire community, the students and the parents, is to restore. Restore Navajo. That's effectiveness. And equity, the balance of efficiency and effectiveness. This is one time where it's win-win on both sides to restore Navajo. There really is no choice. You have full support of the community, the stakeholders. You're going to talk about a lot of things. You're waiting till October 4th, which is unnecessary. You're trying to get a prospectus, an enrollment trend, even if it's from the gold standard, applied economics, or any other group. The truth is, enrollment trends, like Ms. Beckham knows, it's a roll of the dice. You may as well be paying a fortune teller to tell you about enrollment trends. All you got to do is ask the real estate agents who are here today and in our community. I bought my property. I live in the area. We bought from a 95-year-old couple that was gracious enough to let us buy their home. The home behind us had a 90-year-old woman, is now being flipped. There's 5 different homes on Turney alone that are being flipped. And the communities, the families that are moving into those homes, are families that are working class families that have the good grace to be able to afford to live in Scottsdale, in an area that most of us are being priced out of. But the families that are moving in are families with children. I have 2 children myself. I have a 1st grader and a 2nd grader. They love Navajo. My 2nd grader reads at a 6th grade level. That's because of the teachers and the principals we've had at Navajo. You guys also have a stake in this. It's your legacy. Your legacy on the board, we know, has been mired with drama, a lot of drama over the last 3 years or so. So do not be the villains in this story. Be the heroes. Restore Navajo.
Chris Ambry. Chris Ambry. Do we have, oh.
Hi, I'm Chris Ambry. I'm the current president of the Scottsdale Education Association. I wanted to thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I realize it's an option and we appreciate that. I also want to thank you all and my colleagues for a nice, smooth start to the school year, and extend a very special thank you to all of our wonderful families for entrusting their precious children to the teachers and staff of SUSD once again. I wanted to point out I'm wearing a shirt that says the future of the world is in my classroom today. A little big, but there's a couple reasons. One reason I'm wearing it today is to celebrate the national call for recognition of the Red for Ed movement across all 50 states on this day after Labor Day. But the other reason is because I actually believe this message to be the truth for all teachers, and one that guides us all as we strive to inspire every student every day. Last but certainly not least, I had to give my shout out to Navajo. I was lucky enough to work, I got to work for Matt a few years back. And although I was really impressed by what I saw as his really strong leadership during the crisis, I wasn't surprised. As Dr. Kriegert said, the hard work of innumerable people after such a tragic event is nothing short of awe-inspiring. For those of us fortunate enough to hold an elected position in our professional association, of course we wanted to help. So we worked together with our members to find out what we could do. Do you need supplies? Do you need help moving? How about some more supplies? How about some bulletin board paper, some more pencils? What do you need? What can we do? Well, by working through our network, the answer we got was, we're kind of tired. We could use a little TLC. So the SEA was honored to be able to provide lunch for everyone at the new Navajo location on our first early release day last month. But I came up here to say, Navajo, we're not done. Okay, we're here for you. And we're all so inspired by your strength and your perseverance, and we're going to continue to support you in any way we can, as I know our current leadership will as well. Thank you.
And that concludes our public comment. Thank you all for being here. Board Member Kravitz, you had a comment, I believe, or your light's off. Okay, Board Member Hartman.
Yes, thank you, President Perleberg. Just wanted to thank the community, teachers, parents, community members of our Navajo community. We have on October 4th a work study session to cover all the data, as you've pointed out, the enrollment, the demographics, all those things, which is really important. However, I would also like to request that for the October board meeting, which is after that, directly after that work study, that we agendicize the discussion of the restoration of Navajo so that we can put a community's ease and angst at rest so that they understand what their future and what their children's future looks like. Thank you.
You're referring specifically to the October 16th meeting.
That's
Is that
correct.
correct? Okay.
Thank you.
All right. After fall break, correct. Okay, Board Member Kirby.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a moment to thank the audience and the commenters tonight for your thoughtful and respectful comments that were delivered with civility. That goes a long way, and I wanted to thank you for that. And if we're taking a future agenda items on Navajo, I have one as well. I'm not looking for analysis paralysis that is going to take, as one commenter said tonight, months. I'm looking for a very high-level evaluation of the STEAM program that we currently have at Navajo and what it would take from an investment perspective as well as time to take that program to Bright to make it world-class. So as one of the commenters brought up tonight, when a prospective family Googles STEM, Navajo pops up.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And I'll just echo the sentiment that I think we all of us appreciate the tone, the respectfulness, the thoughtfulness of the comments. I know one commenter said it took a lot of courage to come up and make a comment. It takes a lot of courage to sit up here too. So thank you all for being here. All right, so if that's it, we move on to our agenda item 8, consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended? And I'll just review real quickly that we pulled items 8L, O, R, and S.
So moved.
Thank you, Board Member Kirby. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Kravitz. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. And now we'll just wait a little bit and then we'll start on each item. Okay. Okay. So we'll start with item 8L, approval of the renewal of the intergovernmental agreement, IGA, with the City of Scottsdale for ball field maintenance.
That was me.
Board Member Kirby?
Thank you. So just so that the audience and those watching have a perspective, this item is to recommend that the governing board ratify the approval of the renewal of the intergovernmental agreement between the district and the City of Scottsdale to maintain and rehabilitate school sports fields that are used by community youth sports programs as well as district schools. I had sent in a question over the weekend that asked, how does this IGA compare to our current IGA with the City of Scottsdale on scope and price? And the response I got back was, the way I understood it, the price is the same, but the scope is changing. And I wanted to hone in on the scope. It says, we've added Hohocom and removed Sequoia and the north field from the Cholla property. So with respect to this IGA, which is costing the same, what is the difference in, I don't know if you use square footage or acreage, that's maintained with those changes?
Mr. Gadd, do you have that information, or Dennis? The difference in the
acreage or
in
the
the
square
acreage
footage?
or square footage or of the new versus the old IGA. Dennis?
Dennis is there.
Good evening. So I did some quick research on Google Earth. Hohocom's field is about 4.5 acres. Sequoia's field is 2 acres. And ECC Cholla's field is about 2 acres. So the give and the take is about a wash.
Okay, thank you for that. And then will we, as the district, be maintaining the Cholla field? Or
Yes.
will the, okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for answering those questions.
Okay. Are there any additional questions on this item? If not, Board Member Beckham.
Yes, I'm kind of surprised that the scope wasn't put on the proposal since there was such a big change. I have to ask, are there any other changes to this IGA that we should be aware of?
Board Member Beckham, no, there are no other changes to the IGA. We met with the city, Dr. Creekard, Dennis, and Greg Skelton, who knows our district like the back of his hand, and that was the result of this IGA. My mistake in not having that change on there.
I would just like to ask for future reference, Dr. Creekard and Barbara, that when we get these, that we go through them to make sure that they're complete before we get them. Thank you.
Board Member Kirby?
Are you ready for a motion?
I believe we are.
So I move to approve the renewal of the IGA with the City of Scottsdale for bald field maintenance.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Hartman and Kirby. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. We next move to consent item 8O, approve the purchase of multifunction copy machines. I can't recall exactly who pulled this. Was this Board Member Kravitz?
Hello? Okay. I just wanted to know if there's a plan for where these copiers are going to be situated in the buildings, and if the plan has been created in conjunction with the principals, because I recall speaking with one or two principals last year, and some of their sites got some new copiers, and the copiers ended up in the office, and it would have done a world of good for the copiers to be in the copy room instead of the office. And they didn't know why they were in the office instead of the copy room, so I just want to make sure that we're getting these copiers, which are hopefully a great improvement, and that there is a plan that has been created with the input of the principals. Additionally, I see we're getting 10 refurbished machines, And I hope that those will not be going into high-volume areas. I'm thinking of my days of being a copy room mom at Chaparral High School, where we had refurbished machines that were constantly breaking down. So I hope they're going someplace where the machines aren't going to be running constantly, or those refurbished machines, and that the new machines will be in places that can handle the high volume.
So, first off, is the machines that we chose to replace are the ones with the most copies, we call it clicks, on the machines, many of them over 4 or 5 million. I actually have the statistics. So the ones that are the oldest and need the most repairs consistently. The serial numbers are listed on the agenda item, so the principal can know which one of their machines is being replaced, or they can ask me. But it is to replace the very worst first. If a principal does not like where a machine is located and they want us to swap machines, we can do that. But the machines need to be put where the power already exists and where the network connections already exist. So we don't want to move it to a whole nother place on campus.
Oh, no, I don't mean another place. I mean as
existing.
opposed to a copy room versus an office, where maybe the office doesn't need the high-volume copier, but somehow it ended up in the office, and it should be in the copy room.
One of the things we are doing is because there is such a small differential in price from there were 3500 series, which were typically in the front offices, we are no longer doing 3500 series, because that means it prints 35 pages per minute. The lowest speed that we're using is 75 pages per minute, so that anyone can use them and be able to print quickly. Then having to do with the refurbished machines, so we took the very worst machines throughout the district and we replaced them, one per site, and there's just a couple places where we just had to do 2. I think Arcadia was one because they just had 2 machines that were not fixable anymore. But then the refurbished, we did the next worst machines, and so some of them will probably be in high volume places, but they're reasonably refurbished. They're not brand new, but they're coming to us just to take the really, really bad out. So that, number one, hopefully they break less, but 2, it's in the best interest of the vendor because he has to spend less money on parts if he gives us a newer machine. So that's how we went about it. If a principal has questions and they want to work on doing some swaps within their campus, we can do that. And we did do that for some of the schools last year that asked.
Thank you.
Any additional questions on this item? No? If not, are we ready for a motion? Board Member Kravitz?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Oh, gosh, okay. I move that the governing board approve the purchase of the multifunction copy machine.
Thank you, Board Member Kravitz. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Beckham. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. We next move on to item 8R, award of request for proposal number 19003, custodial services contracted. I believe Ms. Kirby, or Ms. Beckham, sorry.
No, who's going to get up to answer the questions? Is Eva here?
Mr.
Gadd?
Oh.
Eva?
These are questions regarding the custodial services contract.
Do we have a question?
Yes, I do. I didn't know if you wanted to wait. I would like to have a clarification on there was a cost breakdown by vendor. ABM was the recommended vendor for $3,850,000. It's $85,000 and some change. And I was wondering, is that for 1 year of the 5-year contract? And then if we accept the option to extend up to an additional year, does it go back out to bid with them? Or is this $3 million guaranteed for the next 5 years?
Use the microphone. Sorry.
It is an annual amount, and it's asking for board permission to renew based upon satisfactory performance. Ava, is there an escalation clause in the amount, do you know?
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Creekard, Jill. There is actually an escalation price. The first year is, as you said, a little over $3 million. The renewable for year 2, there's an increase of 5.5%. That's for year 2. Year 3, it includes just the CPI increase, and the same for year 4 and year 5. Everything else should be inclusive.
I'm told by Mr. Moffett, who is here from ABM, that much of the increase is being driven by the minimum wage law, as you would expect, given the kinds of service that are here.
Okay.
Remember, it ratchets by a full $1 fairly soon. So that's why I think you see some of that escalation the way it is.
If there is a change, and let's say, for some reason, all of a sudden the CPI is going down, or there's some other economics, is it possible to still go back out to bid with this contract that were written for 5 years with the options, or do we not have that option?
No, we have the option to renew annually each year that we're satisfied.
Mhm.
We're not satisfied because the price is not being reduced because of a negative, then we have the option of canceling that contract and going back out to bid.
And going back out to bid, okay. Is there anything else in this contract that we should be aware of? I know that we originally had made it a 3-month contract, and because we had some requests for the language to be put in the contract regarding background checks. Is that language in this new contract?
It is included in the new contract, but then also, in addition, we went back to ABM and sought clarification. We wanted to make sure that they would adhere to the same guidelines, that they would continue providing services under the guidelines of the current agreement, which includes language that they will do the background checks and fingerprint clearance. So all of that will continue, will remain the same. The company has agreed.
Okay.
Excuse me. Those are the stipulations that we made before we had the short term to hold us over, the thing that there was concern about, and so we're maintaining that level of vigilance.
Okay, all right, that wasn't included in the proposal, and so that was one of my main questions. So I would just like to make sure that it is noted in the minutes, what Dr. Creekard just mentioned, and that the fact of the escalation clause as well, since that's not included in the proposal. I don't know if Board Member Kirby has any questions.
Board Member Kirby.
No, I don't have any questions. I just wanted to explain my vote. We had 7 acceptable offers on this, and of the 7, 5 of them are highly competitive, just from the price alone, which would, it led me to want to review all of the proposals, the contract, as well as the evaluation, which I just haven't had time to do over the 3-day weekend we lost yesterday, which is when I probably would have done that. So, I would have appreciated a bit more time on this one, given the price of $3 million, 3.1 almost, the price point.
Board Member Kravitz.
Could you give us some more information about some of the other bids that were submitted and what they included or how they differed or why ABM rose to the top?
I'm not sure if
We
we
can't
can
get
do
that
that
information?
except possibly in exec to discuss vendors specifically.
Well, they're
and their
listed.
bids.
They're no.
Is that?
Jill has a handout for you in anticipation that you might want to look at the scoring that was done to select ABN. She's handing it to you now, and it's fairly self-explanatory. If you
Okay.
go to the second page of that handout,
And
We just became aware of the question this afternoon.
This is from the evaluation committee?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Board Member Beckham.
Is this an item in which we could then have an opportunity to review this and then vote on it on October 4th during our study session? Or because this 3-month contract does not end until September 30th, correct?
Correct. I think that's a question for our staff.
Actually, we would have to vote on this I think we've proposed a work-study session on the curriculum adoption on September 27th, because the current contract runs out September 30th.
Correct.
Does that pose any problems? Because if not, it'd be great to be able.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. We have a contract expiration date of September 30th.
But here's the problem. If for some reason, maybe it's not a problem. My perceived problem is that if for some reason we choose not to approve this particular contract, we will run out of janitorial services in 48 hours and not have another backup.
That's correct. That's correct.
So we'll be,
Staff.
You want
staff to?
He could help clarify.
I think. Board Member Kirby.
I guess I would ask legal, is it appropriate to allow, at this point, because I know vendors can't communicate with the board throughout the procurement, but I don't know at what point that changes.
If the board has specific questions of this vendor, you can ask those now.
We were, at the last study session, we were asking McPherson and the search company questions.
We have done that before in the past as a board, if specific vendors up for approval. Yes. Okay. Please feel free to introduce yourself for the record. Yes.
I'm Wayne Moffett. I'm with ABM Janitorial. I've been with them about 19 years now. We've been in the district for 17. All three of my kids went to Scottsdale schools, Cochise, Cocopah, Chaparral, and one up to the IB program at Desert Mountain. Just throwing a little clarity in there. Anyways, what I was going to say is that if the district would like, I'll go ahead and sign a 2-month or 3-month contract extension if you'd like time to evaluate what you've got in front of you. I don't think you're going to find a better company to do it, but if you want to relieve you from the chance of us expiring within 48 hours after you make a decision, I'd be more than happy to go to corporate and tell them that we'll do it for another 2 months or as long as you'd like.
I'm being looked at for an answer. Yes, you absolutely can do that if you choose to do that. I'm looking at the item to see how.
I'd also add that if I haven't seen the evaluations of anything, but I would add that if you look at the evaluations from the committee, I can assure you that we won hands down over the rest of the competition. There's not another vendor on that list that's doing public education in Arizona. We clean over 30 million square feet every day. We're in Paradise Valley, Scottsdale, Dysart, Peoria, Tolleson Union, Tolleson Unified, Buckeye Elementary, Liberty, Levine, Marana, Alter Valley. So that's why I have no problem at all in guaranteeing that we'll stick around for a couple months, because I know if you look at it, you'll still decide with us.
And I would just add it, I looked at the item and you gave notice to the public of what you're discussing and deciding, and you're just making a modification to that. So you can do that, and thank you, Mr. Moffett, for that offer.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Board Member Beckham, did you have any additional questions, or is that just okay? Okay. So at this time, I was going to say, if we're ready to make a motion, Board Member Beckham, if you'd like
Well,
to.
I just have to, once again, I have to apologize to the public, and I feel it is the board's responsibility to make sure that we have all the information before we go into these meetings. And I just feel that a lot of the information that was provided late to us, and that's our responsibility. And it's unfortunate that we didn't have a time. I had asked also to review the file, and I wasn't able to do it either, because I wasn't given an option to do that today. So because of that, I will move that we accept Mr. Moffat's offer, and I make a motion that we accept a 2-month extension. Not that we have to take the full 2 months. I would like to have us go ahead and come back on the 27th and revisit this and have a proposal for an approval.
May I ask a clarification? Are we talking about through November 30th and an extension of the existing contract that currently expires on September 30th?
It expires on September 30th.
on September
So
30th.
it would expire November 30th, but.
She said if we don't need it, then.
Right, so that we
don't,
would have it, but we would take the time, and we would, on September 27th, you said, we have a board meeting. We could come back with a proposal depending upon what we found out in the next 2 weeks.
And
So that depending upon what happened, we would need that, the extension would happen, but whether or not, we could still write, if it is with ABM, that we could still go ahead and write the year-long contract at that time. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you want to extend the existing contract, which currently expires September 30th.
To November 30th.
To November 30th, pending decision by the board at its next available meeting.
Right. Or we can just say September 27th, because we know we have a meeting. That'll be brought back.
Okay.
Do I have a second? Oh, sorry, Board Member Kirby.
So what I heard Mr. Moffett offer was a 2-month extension. I did not hear him offer, and maybe he can come back up and clarify, I did not hear him offer up to a 2-month extension.
Oh.
Do you see my point? We're somewhat unilaterally changing his offer.
Sure, I'll offer to go month to month, I'll offer whatever
Okay,
you'd like.
all right, thank you.
Okay, that's what I heard. So,
Okay. So, do I have a second? Second. Thank you,
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Kirby. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. All right, so that brings us to 8S, resolution authorizing the execution of warrants between board meetings. Sorry. Board Member Beckham, was this one yours?
Once again, I found that the proposal did not have as much information as I would like to have in a proposal. One of the things that I would like to have added into the minutes is that this particular resolution was approved on June 12, 2018 for a 3-month approval. The reason for the approval is so that we could get clarification on the procurement and purchasing procedures of the department. So I would like to hear what has transpired or what progress has been made. The second item is on the very last paragraph. It says the procurement audit conducted by Clifton Larson will be completed after June 30th, 2019 for fiscal year as stated in the agreement with the Attorney General. That is not a correct statement because we don't have an agreement with the Attorney General. So I would like that to also be noted in the minutes.
Madam President, members of the Governing Board,
Yes,
you want me to respond to that?
that would be great. Thank you.
This is a standard resolution, as you all know, I'm sure. And the district is required to process expenditures between board meetings, or we would cease to exist probably. So this agreement, or this resolution, is, I think, in order because both myself and Ava are new to the district. We've been in procurement for a very long time. I think I know the procurement code, all 120 pages of it from front to back. I was on the committee who established it in 1980, so I have pretty good insight into it. I can tell you that I believe the district is currently in compliance with its purchasing procedures as identified in the procurement code. It is also my understanding, as Michelle knows, that I asked about the CPA firm who I know that you've hired to do that audit, and was basically told that that will occur after June 30th, 2019. So that's why that piece is not here at this point. But I have full confidence in the staff and with my review that we're in compliance with all of the procurement procedures necessary to process expenditures in this district.
So I just want to make it's not that I am not confident in your abilities, it's just that because we have had such a change in the CFO position and we have had documented problems in procurement and purchasing, that this board has continually asked that we make progress in our written documentation on what those procedures are. And maybe that wasn't clear at the last board meeting. But what I'm really looking for is it's not representative of you and your team's competency at this point. It's really on getting the department's procedures in place and documented. And that's what I'm looking for. To know that going forward, because something could happen in the department to you and and anybody in the department that knows the procedures in their head, but we need to know that these are documented and written down. And so that's what I'm looking for.
As I indicated, we have filed by vendor name. When you find the vendor, you will find the purchase order, any additional documentation that goes with it, including quotes, bids, the board award, if it necessitated that. All of that backup information to make sure you're in compliance with the procurement code will exist with that purchase order. That's the heart of what an auditor does when they come in and look at that. They want to trail back to what it started, how you dealt with it during the process, did you comply with the procurement code, and then the end result, which was the approval and a purchase order. That's in file, and that's how those procedures are done in the purchasing office. I can put something in print and send it to the board if you would feel more comfortable with that. That's not a problem. I'm confident of that process because your annual financial auditor also samples procurement. That's part of their job to do that. We simply don't have that audit completed yet for last year. We're just finishing now last year, beginning the new one, so we won't see that still for another 3 or 4 months. That would have been some help, I guess, in this discussion, but we're just not there yet with the time frame that we normally function with the annual financial audit. But I can assure you that we have everything in place that's necessary. And we need a process, we need the board to approve our ability to process expenditures beginning October 1st. We do not have that authorization at this point. And that, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to tell you, because if we can't function with that warrant authorization, then we have some really serious problems.
Board Member Hartman.
Thank you, President Perlberg. Question for you, Dr. Gadden. This may alleviate potentially concerns of Board Member Beckham, which are understandable based on some of the procurement issues that we've had in the past. But can you clarify for us? I believe what this is saying is allows the distribution of warrants for payroll and expense checks. Are those expense checks related to payroll? And the reason why I delineate between the two is there's separate policy and procedure that's related to payroll and payroll expense that is separate from procurement. So to the extent this, I just want to clarify that this is specifically for payroll and expense in the procedures, policies and procedures that support that specific process.
You're correct. Payroll is employees. Expense is vendors in this context. So when it says payroll and expense, it means all warrants, whether it's an employee or whether it's a vendor. That's what the resolution is asking for. The resolution for vendors, obviously, is we have to keep them somewhat pleased with the payment structure or we won't be seeing them any longer. And so that's why we need a process. Yes, it is different because you have an HR department that's feeding the payroll process just as we have others feeding the expense process, but they are different from one another.
Board Member Kirby.
Okay, thank you. I guess I'm a little confused by your comment that we have a functioning, well-functioning, controlled procurement department, but yet in the background, the third paragraph says the superintendent will implement procedures for the review of purchase invoices to determine if those items or those budgeted itemized goods or services have been satisfactorily supplied, funds are available to cover the payment, and invoices are in order. The verb will implement implies that they aren't there today, that those procedures don't exist today, which is consistent with what this board has experienced prior to you and Dr. Virgil arriving months ago. And what I think Board Member Beckham was trying to say is that we have, as a board, been asking, not of you because you weren't here, not of you, Dr. Creekard, because you weren't here, but we have been asking for months to have procurement procedures, controls put in place. And that review that Clifton Larson is going to conduct to tell us where our controls are weak and need to be strengthened, my understanding is it isn't going to happen. We won't get the report until after June 30th of 2019. So I'm struggling as a board member, how do I get confidence other than taking your word for it, which is inconsistent with what's in the background of the consent item, that those controls are in place?
What's in the agenda item is pulled directly out of policy DK. If you look just above it on the header, that wording exists in the policy just so the board had information about what the policy authorization was. It does not mean we don't have procedures. It means that the policy says
but
for
what
anyone
I'm telling,
who wants to look at it.
Okay, but I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm telling you is our experiences prior to you arriving here is we don't have procedures. Those are the facts. We've been embroiled with lawyers for months because of lack of procedures and controls. And so what I'm sensing from this board is we just don't want to be the board that kicks the can down the road and says, oh, well it'll be fine. It's not fine.
If the board would feel more comfortable in us putting together a series of procedures, starting from the requester all the way through board approval, we can do that. And if the board would be willing to extend again that resolution authorizing us to pay bills, we can have back to you within a month's time that full procedure in written form, and I sense that you're more comfortable with that, and we'll be happy to comply with it.
Can I?
Board Member Kirby.
So thank you for that offer. Here's where I'm at. I don't want to hold up payroll. Absolutely not. So I would be ready tonight to go ahead and approve warrants for payroll. It's the vendor expense checks that we have prior not so great experiences with, and that's really my concern. So let's just focus in on that. Having a set of procedures written up doesn't help me as a board member, because just because they're written up on a piece of paper doesn't mean that anyone's actually following them. I mean, we have a policy for procurement that's policies that have been in place for years that nobody has actually followed for years. So that's where that audit comes in, because that's that third set of eyes, that independent evaluator who says, yes, you're running a tight ship in procurement, or no, you're not, and here's where you need to tighten up. So, I don't know what we do on this one. Other than I would be willing to make a motion tonight to approve the warrants for payroll, because under no circumstances do I want to hold up payroll. And we have a few tweaks, control issues in HR that we need to address, but they pale in comparison to those in procurement.
Board Member Hartman.
All right, I hate to have to ask this question because I think it's a can of worms here, but did I just hear you say, Dr. Yett, that we do not have written procedures?
We have a process that has procedures with it. I outlined the process of the requester all the way through and what was attached to the purchase order, et cetera. That is a standard method of operation for school districts in compliance with what is called here procedures. That is the procedural flow of paper when approval is needed, by whom, especially hinging off the dollar amount because of the procurement.
I'm sorry, that's not my question.
Okay.
My question was, did I just hear you say we do not have written procedures? I believe we have a process, but do we have written procedures that support that process?
I believe that we have procedures that were developed through the procurement code. Okay. They're not in as formal a fashion as I would like them to be, but there is written things about this is what you do, this is not what you do, et cetera. That currently exists, and we can provide that to you. We can obviously make it much more formal and also provide that to you as I just offered. So whatever the board's desire is, you have to remember that in this process there are rules, especially developed by the state, and there are rules for bidding, there's rules for quotations, et cetera. The important thing is to have multiple reviews. And the important thing hinges upon the staff that you have, and I don't need to tell you that are implementing procedures. They can choose to not implement some and implement others, and I think you know that too. The whole thing hinges upon a chain of command where those procedures are reviewed and made sure that they comply. And if that process is not occurring, especially if the individual who's responsible for that is not doing what they need to do, then you have problems. And I don't need to, you already know what that looks like. So it is more, I will be very blunt and honest with you, it's more of a people problem. And the individuals and their stature and their ethics and all of those things rolled into one. It's more a people problem than it is a procedural problem. But I'm more than happy to put those procedures in front of you within a month's time so that you can review them and ask questions. And we'll even try to run those by some professional purchasing people in school districts to have them endorse what those procedures say.
Board Member Beckham, you have your light on, did you have additional comments? Okay.
I'm thinking of a lot of things in my head, and yes, it opens up even more cans of worms, because that brings up the concept of not just having an independent auditor once a year that you don't get the information until 4 months after the year's finished to find out if your procedures and policies are being put in place. So that does bring up an interesting argument for an internal auditor to think about, or to maybe have some internal audits in place that just take place periodically, maybe by, I don't know if it's the CFO that gives maybe a formal report, but that's just something to think about in the future. So I would like to make a motion that we, and I agree with not holding up payroll, but I don't know that we have to hold up expenditures for another month if we extend. You're thinking of separating the two, maybe making a motion to extend for the year the payroll expenditures, and so that would be one motion. I'm not opposed to that at all either. So I'll make a motion that we approve warrants for payroll only. Did we have a date on here? I don't believe there was a date, but I'd like a date to adopt a resolution authorizing the execution of payroll warrants between board meetings through June 30th, 2019.
Just a question for Mr. Gadd. Is there an issue with that date? Is June 30th, is
no,
that
no.
a good date?
It's not a problem.
Okay.
I'll make a point. I think if we have a date also in there, it might then be a point of just notification so that we'll know in April that we need to really maybe approve this in April instead of waiting all the way till June, April or May.
Just one comment, with the bond and other things that we've got going on, those expenditures will be affected if we're only going to be dealing with payroll. Because that's
Okay, and I'm going to jump in on this because I think I know where you're heading. Then we have in addition to that part of the motion, a second part of the motion that addresses the, oh, you want to do a separate motion? Okay. Separate motion that addresses all other execution of warrants. I just want to be clear that, I mean, we've talked about vendors. Is there some other area that we wouldn't be covering if we word it too carefully here tonight?
If you choose the word vendors, you've covered everybody.
You've covered
everybody
everybody.
except
Okay,
payroll.
okay. Because, I just want to state, I respect, greatly respect the desire that our board, the staff, administration has in improving our procedures, both written, both in practice, all of that. We all know that is our goal in the district, but I just don't want to get us to a place where we paralyze ourselves as we do that. So I'm just going to say that before allowing Ms. Beckham to, well, I guess one motion has been made. I'll now say, do I have a second to
I'll
that
second
motion?
that.
Thank you, Board Member Kirby. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. And then I think I'll try and make a stab at, I make a motion that the board approve the authorization of the execution of vendor warrants for such time up to, do we need to extend this? I hate to kind of limit us to that September 27th meeting, actually. I'd like to make the motion for October 30th, and with the understanding that we're going to be discussing this in our
That would be fine.
October meeting.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'll make that motion. Do I have a second? Thank you, Board Member Beckham. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Okay, so that moves us to our action item. 9A, possible action to adopt district core purpose, core values, business definition, strategic anchors, and thematic goal. Dr. Creekard, are you, I think you're leading this
Yes.
conversation?
Thank you, President Perleberg, members of the board. At the board retreat that was held in early August, we reinforced the belief that you as a board and we as the administration of the district have in the core purpose that was developed a year ago, and the core values, the business definition, the strategic anchors, and the thematic goal. And because we have been using these, because they were developed in a board retreat, we thought it would make sense to have you formally adopt them so that we are using them as a board-adopted core purpose, values, etc. So that's why we're bringing these forward. We will be developing the strategies that will help us achieve the thematic goal. Various cabinet members have been assigned the 5 goal areas, or buckets as they were called in the training, and are developing their particular areas, and we will bring those back to you when they are developed. In our plan for that, as established in the retreat, was for by the end of September. So that means September 27th. One more thing on that agenda, but that was a plan that was made, and that's what we're following through. But we thought we'd bring these first, and get, because they are not going to be changed or further developed, and be able to move forward and say, yes, these are board-adopted guidelines for the way we do business, and those things that we depend upon to do business right. Thank you.
All right, do we have any comments or questions around this rather large conversation that we did have? Board Member Kirby?
Thank you for that. Thanks, Dr. Creekgard. So if we adopt these tonight, can you give me an example of how we might see the purpose or the values or the anchors begin to come to life in the district?
Again, they would be used as they have been as headers on our various things from our website to our letterhead for various reasons. But the idea is for them to become ingrained in our speak as well as in our actions, so that everybody recognizes that not only are we talking about being responsive, but we are being responsive in our actions, and we are commenting that, look, we are being responsive.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Board Member Hartman.
Thank you. And Dr. Krieger, thank you for your leadership in continuing this conversation with our retreat to ensure that we are still aligned around these purpose, values, definition, and anchors. Just one comment and one request. So there's this saying that I love in strategy development, which is execution eats strategy for breakfast. And why that I think is so relevant is it's about how we execute on these things, which is I think what Board Member Kirby was saying as well. So I just want to clarify, and there may be some wording around here that I think may be important for future boards, is that the thematic goals are specifically 1 year priorities, initiatives that drive to the purpose, the value, the definition, and the anchors. And so I think it's important that if we believe this concept of thematic goals is important and that the initiatives behind them are important, I think we should define thematic goals as 1 year strategic initiatives to drive towards these purposes, or this content here, which is what you're having your team work on, because this is back to execution. So just the clarity around it, because thematic goal is kind of a broad term, and so people will understand what that means. Secondly, I do want to request, and we've talked about this already, I'm comfortable with going down the direction of adopting these here tonight with the clarification on thematic goal. What I'd like to see, though, added to this, we don't need to wait for it, but added to this is we need to include with this, I think this is the right place to include it, our long-range strategic planning metrics. When we started this strategic planning process 2 years ago now, we spent many, many hours on our long-range strategic planning goals. And they were well done. They're actually based on many school districts. We refined them, but this is a model, for example, that Chandler uses and so forth. So many of the metrics are very reasonable. However, back to execution, eat strategy for breakfast, you need to know what you're going to measure too. And so I think it's important that we adopt these metrics as well from a resolution perspective, so that we're all in agreement on what these metrics are and how we're going to measure success. So that would be a separate discussion. Hopefully we can knock that out in September, October. And in addition to that, this was a request made in our August retreat, we need to take these metrics and actually drop in 17-18 school year results so that we know how we're performing against these metrics. I do want to underscore, for purposes of this conversation, when we started developing this 2 years ago, we called this the 2020 plan, because it's recognized that these metrics aren't going to be achieved overnight or in 1 year, and which is the reason why they're long-range strategic metrics. So I just want to add that context, because I don't anticipate by any means we have reached perfection on these metrics, but the point is we need to understand where we're at to know where we're going to go. And so until we drop 17, 18 results in here, we are still shooting in the dark. So to me, this is a priority that we get these dropped in here, so at least we know where we're at. And then we then we know where we need to go, which, by the way, ties with the thematic goals, because where we're short is most likely where we're focused on in our short-term metrics our short-term thematic goals to achieve those metrics. Does
Right.
that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, Board Member Beckham?
So, and I will say, Board Member Kravitz and I were not here for that 2-year discussion, and so I have just briefly looked at those.
You were there.
For the not for the 2020 plan.
When we discussed all of this a year and a half ago.
She's talking about. I thought you were talking about the 2020 plan when you just brought that up.
No, that's.
No, okay, so that's why I'm getting clarification.
That's long gone.
Okay, so I was going to say, I needed some time to review the 2020 plan that you were referring to. So
this
you're
is
just
our
talking
2020
about the
plan.
metrics that we did last. Okay, all right.
Board Member Kirby.
That's a good point. So it is 2018-19 school year. That 2020 plan was built maybe a decade plus ago. Is it everyone's understanding on the dais that this action tonight becomes our new strategic planning process that becomes more iterative, annual thematic goals versus a once-a-decade stab at it? Is that everyone's understanding, just so we're clear for the public too? Okay, thank you.
And then the details in how we achieve this goal will continue each year. These goals haven't changed from a year ago. Usually in school districts, goals remain pretty much the same across districts as well as across time. We all want to have academic achievement as number one goal. We want to recruit and retain the best people. We want to be fiscally responsible. These are the kinds of things that are always in the goals. So it's in the metrics, as Kim says,
Yeah.
that we prove those.
I'm going to jump in and take a stab at it, because we were all together when we started this journey. And I just want to say, through it all, this part of the journey is something I value and respect you all as we went through it together. This work is, to me, what defines this board. So I just want to thank you all for that work. But also, what I leave as we approve this tonight is the fact that we are still building our goals. We have a great foundation for our metrics that we will review, judge those goals by. But these are the filters that we put those goals through. Each year, every 3 years, 5 years, everything. These are the filters that we put it through. And I do think our board understands how meaningful these filters are and the focus that it gives our district. And so I just want to say that's my understanding. But Board Member Kirby.
Okay, thank you. But we're now talking, what Dr. Creekard just said was the 2020. The goals that he just listed, academic achievement, I think what you were listing were these that are at the bottom of the agenda.
And
Fiscal
those are
stability,
old.
those are old. And so what I'm,
I was speaking in generalities.
but what's important though, we have to clarify this, because these come from the old 2020 plan. And I just want to make sure my expectation, and maybe I'm off and I need to be told I'm off, is that the thematic goals that we'll be getting back in September, October, whenever you said, will replace these goals that are at the bottom of our agenda items.
Well, and
is that correct?
I think you are correct, but I think our thematic goal is actually that overarching one goal. Our real day-to-day hard work goals that are coming in October are different.
They're the defining
they
objectives.
are, though, I think they are what will replace what is currently at the bottom
Perfect.
of our agenda.
That's
items.
my understanding.
That's my understanding as well.
Yeah, just to be clear, I was not reading these. I was talking, every district that I've been in has these broad goal areas.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Board Member Hartman.
So, just so that we're on the same page. The specific long-term metrics, long-term goals that we're talking about, I'm looking at the document in front of me, but they included 5 areas. And I'm not sure that, to tell you the truth, they are these bottom 5 right here. But this is the this is the dashboard. It's number 1, grade level achievement, and there's details beneath that. Number 2 is literacy in pre-K, literacy pre-K through 3. Number 3 is middle school and high school post-secondary preparation. Number 4 is national and state academic goals. And number 5 is matriculation and persistence. There's a handful of very specific metrics beneath each one of those. Those are our long-term strategic goals. But to even add just another term in here, because we've used it before, it's kind of the dashboard, right? If somebody outside in the community wants to understand how we're performing, this becomes our gold standard of what we're trying to achieve in terms of achieving it, ensuring every student, individual learner reaches their full potential. This is how you measure that core purpose. Does that make sense to me? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
okay.
That's all achievement. So, perfect.
Thank you for clarifying.
Board Member Kravitz?
I just want to make sure, I haven't looked, is that document somewhere featured prominently on our website? I think that would give people
We'll be
in the
reviewing it as a
community,
board
right,
in more detail, and as Board Member Hartman
some
said, we'll be
better idea of
updating
what
those metrics.
Okay.
We might add, we might whatever, but those conversations are coming, and then that would be the time that,
Okay,
to Dr. Creekard's point, that's when it becomes, really a part of our everyday life in SUSD, so to speak.
Okay, yeah, I mean, and, yeah, that's my point too.
After we discuss it in more detail. And to Board Member Kirby's point, we'd approve those as well. Board Member Kirby?
Are you ready for a motion?
I am.
So I move to adopt the district core purpose, core values, business definition, strategic anchors, and thematic goal.
All right,
As
thank you.
presented.
Thank you, Board Member Kirby. Do I have a second? Yes, Board Member Hartman.
I would like to add that thematic goals are one-year initiatives.
You mean district goals rather than
No,
one thematic goal?
The thematic goal is just, they're one-year initiatives. And the reason why I'm underscoring that is because if we adopt this, I think it's important to understand that these need to be reviewed on an annual basis.
So
you're adding a tagline.
I
subset?
think that kind of undermines what the thematic goal was supposed to be, from my recollection of the conversations we had, that it was nothing like that you would change in a year.
Are you?
Board Member Kirby.
So are you suggesting that our thematic goal to create a culture of learning should be up for debate 1 year from now?
No. What I'm actually saying is that the discussion behind what those culture of learning initiatives are, this year, for example, we have 5, need to be reevaluated.
Okay, so
each
could I
year.
make a suggestion that we adopt, or that we vote on the motion if it's seconded as I made it?
Yes.
And then when the goals are brought to us, I'm using the wrong word. What's the
district goals, I think.
The goals underneath the thematic goal? That's when we talk about these will be updated on an annual basis.
My
Those are
own
objectives.
Those
The
are
objectives are brought to us.
objectives.
Those are the ones that get updated.
It is, however, the detail will not be published in here, because that's actually kind of at the operational level. Those are this year, those were the 5 focus areas of which each of the leadership team members are kind of building their work plans behind. So, although it will be a conversation in September or October, this won't change. The reason why I wanted to point out that thematic goals do change, or the thematic goal, the initiatives beneath the thematic goal will change each year is because that is an important board discussion each year on what are the 1 year.
But once
Some
we
of
have the
them-
discussion and approve those goals or initiatives or whatever, and once we approve them, then they would replace this on the bottom of our agenda.
Possibly. So I guess we'll have to figure, we can talk about that as part of the September-October conversation.
Okay, Board Member Beckham?
I'm following what Board Member Hartman is saying, and the thematic goal can change. It should be looked at every year, but you could choose it to be the same every year. Your objectives can change. But that thematic goal, as I understood it in how it was presented, is discussed not even every year. It's discussed whatever in the expiration date that you put on it. Because remember, you could put a 6-month thematic goal if you wanted to. I think your point is you just want to make sure that it's understood that it's just not a long-standing once thematic goal, that it could change, but it doesn't have to, that it's reviewed once a year.
Okay. All right. And, I mean, yeah, all that Dr. Creekard, he just showed me the worksheet. I always forget what we want to call this. But I think, yeah, I was probably recalling it incorrectly, that, you know, our thematic goal is what's most important right now. So that does change the definition, for me at least. Okay. All right. So we do have a motion on the table.
I'm going to
Board
rescind
Member
my motion because I'll let Board Member Hartman make a new one. I'll support it, but I want her to, because I would botch it up. So.
Okay. Board Member Hartman,
All right.
bring us home. All right.
Let's see. I recommend that the governing board adopt the core purpose, core values, business definition, strategic anchors as stated, and thematic goal, add the description next to it of approximately 1 year initiatives, supporting initiatives.
All right. Dr. Creeker, did you have a
Are
question, clarification?
If you're looking for wording, the wording from the retreat was creating a culture of learning by April 2019. That puts a timeline on it to be redone, looked at, revisited at that point.
Just add that language to April 2019. All right.
All right, I'll restate my motion. I'll leave it all the same, except that we add creating a culture of learning by June, by April 2019.
I don't know why April.
Perfect. April. All
Second
right.
that.
Thank you, Board Member Hartman. Thank you, Board Member Kirby. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. All right. Our next item, 10, future items. Do I have any additional requests for future agenda items? We have noted tonight, obviously, discussion on our Navajo restoration or rebuild marketing and the marketing of the STEM, taking a look at that STEM program. Also, the strategic planning goals and metrics. We have that. Do we have an additional? Board Member Kirby?
I want to just clarify. I'm not asking about just evaluating how we market Navajo STEM.
Okay.
I'm actually looking for a high-level evaluation of the program and the purity
And
of
the
the
program.
program itself.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
we
I
all
did
know
slip that in there.
Yeah, I think we all know
but
our
yes.
marketing budget has been
Yes.
very light
Yeah,
in the
and-
district
and-
for years.
And review of the program, yes. I have that understanding. Okay. Any additional agenda items? I see no lights, so we'll move on to the dates of our upcoming meeting. Our next board meeting will be a study session at 1 p.m. on Thursday, September 27th. I have that time correct, I hope, on 2018. And another study session will be held on Thursday, October 4th, 2018 at 3 p.m. Both meetings will be held at the Mojave District Annex. The next regular governing board meeting will be held Tuesday, October 16th, 2018 at 5 p.m. here at Coronado. Do we have any governing board reports this evening? I see no lights. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Thank you, Board Member Kirby. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Kravitz. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. We are adjourned. Thank you all.